Green Noise is back for season 2. Welcome to Green Noise, a podcast series from CapeNature that is bringing nature to life, and we use white noise to try to sleep better, but green noise to make life better.
You've got this wall of fire coming towards you. What are you going to do?
It's a massive shift in tourism.
To build an inclusive and connected society, especially in the Western Cape.
Women just do things differently.
Welcome back to Green Noise, a podcast series about biodiversity, conservation, and ecotourism from CapeNature, the Cape's Biodiversity Conservation Authority. My name is Dan Corder. We are shooting today from the absolutely gorgeous Assegai Bosch, or Assegai Bos, because I did do Afrikaans and got 79. Tweede Dissenelitate. It was a lot of 7 line that went into that. Nobody here is impressed, but I'm glad that you understand what I just hoid in your direction. Okay, so we always say on this show that white noise helps you sleep, but green noise helps you get more richness and flavor and delight out of life in natural environments, and that is what CapeNature is so good at. And as we record this episode, this special episode, we've just come off the back of a couple of days of really quite terrifying, widespread destruction of natural fires across certain parts of the Cape Peninsula, which makes it all the more prescient that we're now going to be having this special episode on a massive part of biodiversity and conservation, which involves CapeNature, which is on fire management. It's on how to handle and manage the natural processes through which different parts of vegetation genuinely does need to burn, but in healthy and effective ways that don't ultimately threaten human life. And so I'm really thrilled to welcome 2 experts on the subject in this very, very important time. Dion Rousseau is the Capability Manager, Integrated Catchments for CapeNature. Thank you for joining me. And Louise Vessels, who's the Manager of the Overberg Fire Protection Association. Now, Dion, just before this recording started, you were taking calls about deploying helicopters. What's going on?
So we've got a fire in the Witzenberg area, Waterval Nature Reserve, and that's been burning for about 5 or 6 days now.
Wow.
And we're sort of at the tail end of it now. It really is, the fire doesn't want to die. It wants to keep on living. So we've got aircraft out there now just sort of putting out the last of the lines, and hopefully by this evening we'll sort of have it contained. Yeah.
So tell me about CapeNature's role in managing and fighting fire outbreaks.
So, a lot of our time goes into fire management. So, us preparing for a fire season starts in the previous fire season.
Sure.
We do post-fire season audits, to see what happened during the previous fire season, what equipment, what PPE, what resources we need, as well as what training we need. And then throughout winter, we're doing our planning for the summer season. But what we are finding as well, that with climate change, our fire seasons are getting longer. So whereas before they were from sort of December to April, now we're finding, October to May.
Wow.
is our season.
Pretty much a half-year block.
Yeah, so wow. we had a bit of downtime before, sort of 10 years ago, but now we are finding that fires are encroaching into winter as well. So
sure.
Yeah,
that's
so
extraordinary.
as I said, a lot of planning goes into it, and then our official fire season starts on the 1st of December.
Okay.
Anything that happens
With
before
festive.
that is like a rehearsal.
Okay.
But the 1st of December is when we sort of really do knuckle down and focus on fire properly for the next sort of 3 or 4 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So Louise, tell me about the Overberg Fire Protection Association. What do you guys do?
So the Western Cape is divided into 5 fire protection associations, and we are district-wide. So I am the manager for the district, but I also do a representation on the umbrella Fire Protection Association, which is for all the FPAs in the Western Cape. So FPA is formed via an act. Long story, not interesting. And then what we get landowners outside an urban edge together, to work together to mitigate and prevent and be ready for veld fires.
I see.
So it's a voluntary association, but we get formed legally, and then we get our landowners to understand why they should belong to an FPA, because if we work together, we're stronger together and we get it quicker out and we prevent more veld fires, devastating veld fires.
What inspired you to get into this? I also want to hear from you, Dion, about this, because looking at a fire, a real danger, going, that's what I want to do. It's like not the most beaten path, trodden path.
So I got married and moved to Vadarsdorp.
Okay.
I was in corporate, big accounting firms, and so project management was my strength.
I see.
But I love making fire.
Oh, okay.
I will go camping and my husband will put in 4 bags of wood. And
not
so
the
I was
answer I
identified by other NGOs in the same industry who recommended me for this position.
Oh, I see.
And I love it. It's going strong.
Fascinating. And you, Dion? How do you get into the firefighting
Well,
business?
mine was sort of a baptism by fire, because I moved to Limmitberg Nature Reserve, which is just outside Paarl.
Okay.
And I moved in January 1999. And in February 1999, we had the worst fires that the Boerland had ever had.
Wow.
And Limmitberg was sort of the ground zero for those fires. So I came from Riverlands Nature Reserve, which is a very small reserve, hardly any fires, to Limmitberg. And for 2 months we fought fires solidly.
Wow.
And it kind of, caught the bug. And I look at it as I'm doing everything that I wanted to do as a child.
Yeah.
Lighting fires, putting them out, flying in helicopters,
Yeah.
that type of thing. So it's been a fun 25 years. But I think, just picking up experience and knowledge and expertise, I've managed to work myself up now to where I am now, where in a way I miss fighting fires, but I'm now creating the platform for people to fill my position that I had, 20 years ago. So
For sure.
it's rewarding in that way, mentoring and coaching and everything. So I really do enjoy it.
So it's great to hear that you're now in your management position coming from genuine experience, in the same way that it's hard to respect soccer coaches who never played the game, I guess. I would love you to tell me about the first fire that you fought as a firefighter. What was the shock? What was the things that you didn't expect would happen? How did it feel? Was it terrifying? Was it destabilizing? Was it emotionally rigorous?
So I think, we obviously there's a lot of training that goes into it. And the only way to get the practical knowledge is to go and fight the fires.
Yeah.
So, 1999 was my sort of initiation into firefighting, and, as you say, being on the line and actually fighting the fire as opposed to coordinating it. There is that fear. Fire can kill you very easily.
And it is terrifying, like when it is big enough and out of control enough.
It is, but, we use lessons learned, and we could possibly talk about this later as well, where you can show a video to somebody and say, you've got this wall of fire coming towards you, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Are you going to run?
Sure.
Or if you've got the right PPE, you can actually just walk through it and you'll be fine. So it's all those lessons, but I think the most important one is don't panic.
Yeah.
Because panic will just absolutely kill you.
Absolutely.
You can't outrun a fire that is running towards you.
Yeah.
We've measured them at 16 kilometers an hour, which is a really, relatively fast run.
It's faster than most humans.
Yeah. It's been quite an experience, I must say.
And Louise, the first time there was a fire on your watch, I guess, in your role in Overberg, how did that make you feel?
So I'll give you a little background on my role. My role is to organize the landowners and get them ready and not cause enough fires so that there is fires in the area.
For sure, but the first time it happened, you must have felt like, is all of our prep going to work?
I killed everybody. So that whole fear, what's going to happen, I had everybody, man and his dog, close to that fire, up and running.
Wow.
Get your bucky-suckies ready. The town was warned. I made the fire chief nervous, and that worked for us. And so also lessons learned down the road of how to do it and what information is needed, and when to say to people, I understand that you are worried, but this is what we're doing now, and it's very far from you. So that role is my big role: getting organized, anticipating where it's going to happen, get the right information to the right people, because if you have to make decisions, you need to know where it's going, what it's going to do. It's a little bit of that third voice, just keeping it in the background. But I'm very happy. And now I have a nice outfit as well. And the people in town don't look at me strangely for what I do. So even Dion understands it when I get there. So we've come a long way, and it was terrifying. Yes.
Yeah, it sounds like to a degree you're a community psychologist also. Like what Dion said about not panicking, like a huge part is just emotional management of people, which is very interesting. So I want to hear from both of you. What causes all these wildfires in the Western Cape? What is it about our biome or biosphere that causes fires to happen? And secondly, why are certain areas more prone than others?
So as far as, how the fires start, unfortunately, probably 90% of fires are started by people. And that's through ignorance, negligence. A very small percentage is actually people wanting to start a fire. It does happen, and we've had a number of cases every year.
So to dovetail what Dion is saying, so that you have to understand where is your highest risks and how you have to respond before you get to the fire.
Right.
So you know your top 10 risks, you can manage it, and you know what resources you want to send. Everybody is warned. You start making fire breaks, etc. So one of the first things I did when I started out was to understand why does these fires start? And it unfortunately came a lot from landowners. Thought they can quickly do a burn here or stubble land, and they didn't follow the permit process. So we've got them there now. And the second biggest thing we had to do was to understand how to report a fire.
Okay.
The fear of I'm going to get a bill or my neighbor's going to be cross. Oh, I'm going to be so shy. I did this now.
Right.
And then they wait too long, and then no fire service can save them. No neighbor can save them. So we've got them, the education process and the understanding, and also the commitment to also don't want veld fires that goes too big.
Sure.
And that assists a lot in quickly identifying it and quickly get the right resources there and see if we can make a difference.
So tell me about different strategies that FPAs use to literally prepare the land to be safer, even like for a prospective fire coming in the future.
So I'm very privileged in my FPA. We use fire as one of the key elements to manage a high risk area. So we will identify the top 10. Dion and his team is part of that annual meeting that we have with the large landowners and the fire services, and then we decide these are the areas, and then we say, okay, can we fight that fire or not?
Right.
Or can we do anything? Can we do a fire break? No, we can't do anything. So we will send in the chopper immediately. So it's already been identified, aerial resources. Or no, we're going to wait till we get to this border, and we will prepare there. And then we'll, if there's not many other fires going on at the same time, and we have the time, we will then stop the fire there.
Okay.
And then the same with the elements where we can make a difference, and we can educate, and we can start putting in teams, working together to make that area safe. But at this moment, it's the quick response that's making the biggest difference, and the response from the landowners.
Yeah, for sure.
They know the area. They've lived on it for 30, 40, 50 years. Their parents lived there. They know where the dammetjies is. They know where the turn-offs are. They know when last did it burn. And that's my job, is to bring that knowledge in a ordered way or georganiseerde manier to the fire chief or the incident commanders to make a decision.
Sure.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Now, Dion, you worked on one of the most devastating fires this area of the world has ever seen, which was the Knysna fire. I seem to remember us having another conversation where you said that fire had actually been burning, was it for months maybe, or at least weeks in the Knysna forest before it became this crisis moment for Knysna as a town. Can you take me through the work that you did and the exposure that you had to that devastating event?
So, firstly, the fire started on I think I was just trying to remember the date now. I think it was the 22nd of March at 5 to 9.
Okay.
And it was a lightning strike that hit in the indigenous forest. But because Knysna had been in a sort of semi-drought for a relatively long period of time, Normally that fire would have gone out because there's too much moisture in the
In the big canopy.
indigenous forest, and but it didn't. It was what you call an anoxic fire. It was underground.
Oh, I see.
So you didn't really see it, but you did see signs of it. So you saw smoke, and the satellite images that we got, you saw the vegetation dying. So you could see these trees turning from green to grey, and this area getting bigger and bigger. And then, unfortunately, on the 7th of June, it was really just a perfect storm. It was 1 o'clock in the morning. Very, very high winds, berg winds. So the temperature went from something ridiculous like 21 degrees to 35 degrees.
Wow.
The humidity went from 50% down to 21.
Sure.
And with that whole set of circumstances, the fire then managed to get out of that little valley, and then with the wind behind it, really wreaked devastation.
Sure.
I think 8 people passed away. So we were called in on the 8th as a resource to come and assist as an incident management team, and we came in and within sort of 24, 36 hours, we had sort of stabilized the situation. But when I say stabilize, I mean it really is organized chaos, because we had so many flanks. We had so many areas that were burning at once. Never mind just the Knysna fire, but we had separate actual fires as well, one in Plettenberg Bay and another one closer to Sedgefield. So it really was organized chaos. But the incident command system is a command and control system.
Okay.
So you can make the incident management team as big or as small as you need it.
Right.
With the Knysna fire, it was the biggest incident command or incident management team we had ever had in the country. It was the first sort of type 1 incident in the country as well. So it was massive. I mean, we lost 1,000 structures, over 1,000 structures. And unfortunately, a lot of those structures were informal structures.
Yeah.
It's probably the highlight of my firefighting career. Having worked for 18 years as a firefighter and building up the experience and knowledge, and then being able to go in and use it. And as I said, within 24 hours, we'd stabilized the situation, which is, it's quite quick.
Yeah, it's impressive.
Because you've got every, you've got disaster management, you've got health, you've got, you've got different fire departments, you've got volunteers. They were flying volunteers from Joburg down to Cape Town, and we had to go and fetch them at the airport.
Sure.
It really was very, very difficult.
Yeah.
But again, the incident command system came through, and I think we were there for about 5 days and left when things had calmed down relatively.
So before we move on to how firefighters actually do fight fires and how you guys direct them to do so, because I've watched enough movies about this, but I'm not sure how many of them are good depictions of reality. Dion's really shaking his head. But before we get there, I'm really interested in how technology has changed the way that CapeNature, your FPA in Overberg also is able to predict and counteract and fight fires in the moment. You mentioned, Dion, about satellite technology, able to spot the genesis of the Knysna fire. What other kinds of technologies have in the last 10, 20 years, and even more recently than that, become really useful for firefights?
Well, hopefully we'll be working with a company that has satellites. They can, within 5 minutes, be able to tell us that there's a fire started somewhere. And then what they have are fire prediction models. So they can say, with this wind, with this temperature, on this slope, the fire's going to probably do this. But what's nice about it as well is that it's AI, it's run by AI. So it takes a photo of the fire, and then it takes a photo every hour after that. And if it originally predicted the fire would go here, but the fire actually went there, it would learn, it would change its algorithms to be able to each time give us a more accurate representation
and
of
being
where the fire
responsive
would
to that
go.
data collection is amazing.
Yeah. So, and a couple of years ago, we used AFIS, which was the Advanced Fire Information System. So that was Eskom satellites, or Eskom satellite time that they had, because it was to pick up fires near their power lines. So as a default, because it was near their power lines, we would get the information as well. But the lead time on that was 45 minutes. And most of the time we would, because we've got the FPAs and our partners with the district municipalities and volunteers and, people out there, if you see smoke, they know that they need to call. So I think cell phones, something as simple as a cell phone becomes really important if there's a farmer in field and he sees smoke on the edge of his boundary or he sees smoke in the mountains. He can phone immediately. And we'd rather have too many people phoning than too few. So I think technology has come a long way. We've also used thermal scanners. So once we've contained a fire, then instead of us spending 48 hours mopping the fire up, as it were, we use these thermal scanners. And if we're not finding any heat signatures, then the fire's out, and we send everybody home to get ready for the next fire.
Interesting.
So technology plays a big role.
That's amazing. Okay, so now let's talk about what happens when a fire starts, how the firefighters go in. Louise, do you want to start on that? Because you're the person who makes the calls and hammers down on the fire chief.
We're a team, and each FPA does mostly the same that I do. So if I speak of myself, it will be representative across the Western Cape. So I would say we got a few years ago 60% of the calls, if there's a fire, went through the fire service control room, and 40 would come to us. And we are now 50-50, which should move to 60 or 80-20, because we are educating our landowners to phone. They know where to send the PIN to. They have already groups formed where they can warn their neighbors. So much of that happens immediately. So if we get a call, we will immediately let the fire, the 24-hour control room, you have to register the fire. We do that. We go and we phone the nearest landowner, or we try and get a PIN for the fire services. When we have the PIN, all our members are mapped. We represent 60% of the members in the Overberg, so we always have somebody close. They've got in their groups, they go and find the fire for us, they send the PIN, and they tell us it's in a mountain, it is going to run, 20 years last it burned, or they tell us, we think we can stop it here, just send us a big truck, etc., etc. So it is based on trust and understanding and knowledge of the landowner, and what he's learned over time, how to work with the fire services. So when I started, I said, nobody goes onto a fire line if they, as fire services, don't greet the landowner, and no landowner will get service if he doesn't greet the fireman. That was how it was 18 years ago. So they are now getting to know each other, they call each other. So that also helps a lot. So then it will be, I think what the guys are telling me, we might fly, or our fire chief is quite informed, so he will say, to high-risk area, 7 trucks broken, 3 other fires, we are going to fly, and we just need an hour. So that's the trick. If you fly, that's why initial attack and information around initial attack is so good. You can put it out in an hour, or you can protect homes, or you can protect lives, or you can kill a flank so long. But it doesn't necessarily mean you can put out the fire. So if you commit, aerial resources doesn't solve all your problems. And that is the education we're fighting against. This whole view, if there's a fire, there must be an aerial support. The trick of the trade is the numbers must be available. They must know that landowners have a legal responsibility to phone in when there's a veld fire. If they don't phone in, insurance will give them a problem.
I understand. Okay, so Dion, let's talk about something that Louise mentioned, which is what is a large-scale rapid initial attack strategy for firefighting? Because I think that's something that people need to know.
Yeah, so the acronym is LASRIA.
Okay.
So I'm really trying to get that word out
LASRIA.
there. Give me an L, give me an A, for LASRIA. But LASRIA stands for Large Scale Rapid Initial Attack.
Okay.
So, and that is, again, critical to containing fires as quickly as possible. So we've got hotspots and eco-sensitive areas on our reserves. So we know when to deploy LASRIA and when not to.
Sure.
But, most of the time we are deploying LASRIA because the fire mosaics on our reserves, so the different felt ages within the reserve, are not what they should be.
Okay.
The species composition in 3-year-old felt is completely different to 15-year-old felt. So you kind of need to have a bit of both.
Yes.
And at the moment we've got a lot of young felts. We really are trying to put out fires as quickly as possible. So LASRIA is critical. So it's about calling out the aircraft if we know where the fire is, and they would make an impact. But it's also about getting the teams there. the ground teams, and the district municipality with all their vehicles and the water and so on. So we do drills with our teams, and they understand the urgency. So if there's a fire, they don't slowly walk towards the vehicle. Everybody, that's like in the movies.
Yeah.
Where you just see everybody bailing onto a vehicle
Yeah.
and off you go. We really do try to sort of install that in the ground teams and then get onto the fire lines as quickly as possible. And I think the other thing that Louise sort of touched on was information versus intelligence. A landowner can phone me and tell me that there's a fire in the mountain. But I need to take that information I need to understand where that information is coming from, as opposed to like what happened to me a couple of years ago, where a colleague phoned and said there's a fire in the mountains above Rawsonville. So I immediately know exactly where he's talking about, and I know that if we lose the fire there, it's a 3-week fire. So I call everything. We've got 4 helicopters on its way. And when I arrive on scene, it's a very, very small fire in very, very young veld. So I've got 4 helicopters staring at me going, where's the fire? Nobody has ever turned around to me and said, yeah, you wasted money there. We understand, we know that every time we call an aircraft, there's a possibility that we may turn it back. And the same with the ground team, same with the district municipality, same with the volunteers. So intel is critical, but also when you get the intel, also just ask the right questions.
So you asked me, your question was, what do we do when there's a call coming in?
Yes.
So firstly, the siren go off in the fire station and the big trucks man immediately. Then the senior on station will get into his bakkie and chase ahead of the fire, of the call of the big trucks, and they will arrive and then say, listen, this is a problem. They'll call us to say we need more landowners, or we don't know where it's going, etc. So if it is a large-scale attack, it will be that a few trucks and the IC will go out immediately with his airband. Aerial resources, we will then gain the fire service with us gain more information. They'll decide if they want to deploy, but then there is an airband on scene. We'll find dams and not which ones not to use, and etc. So it's then we stabilize. We take that first 2 hours to fight. Then we say, okay, so what is this fire going to do? What's the weather going to do? What do we have? And then our job is then to sit back and think, okay, shall we call in VWS? Right. It's evening. It's going to be difficult. They can come out. They're good in this type of terrain. Or shall we ask CapeNature for more teams? Or shall we go wider? Who do we do to warn? And then we scale up from there. And then it's also important, if it's a large-scale attack, your people get tired. And they work very hard. I mean, a fireman is committed. 24 hours... 72 hours, they will do it. They will just have some Coke and coffee, and we try and get them more refreshments. But you also need to highlight to the guys who's in the middle of the fight, I think your people will get tired and they will not be able to make good decisions. But this is what we offer. So it's a team. It's just really a team. We can get more landowners. The landowners from across the valley is prepared to come, or Dion might have more people available. So it is a fight till the end.
I see. I see.
And it's usually the first sort of 2 hours to 4 hours, depending, you kind of get a feel for it eventually. You do initial attack versus extended attack. So initial attack is just throwing everything at it, and spending a lot of money in a very short period of time trying to contain it. But if you've lost it and it's running up the mountain, and you kind of have to find that tipping point where you go, okay, let's pull back. We now are in extended attack. We're here for the long haul, and that's when the incident command buses come out, and we then sort of get that rotation going of people, and we more strategic in the planning of how we're going to fight the fire, but then use tactics on specific flanks and things. So it's not just going in there and fighting a fire. There's a lot of strategic and tactical thinking that goes into it.
Well, I am incredibly relieved and inspired that there are passionate experts like the two of you pouring your lives and your focus and your skills into keeping us safe, into considering biodiversity and conservation, and trying to keep this beautiful place that we live in and enjoy so much as healthy as possible. So thank you so much, Louise. Thank you so much, Dion. I really, really appreciate your time. And I'm so much better informed now. What did you say? Information and intelligence? I need to get the intelligence, but I've definitely now got the information. And thank you for joining us on this episode of Green Noise, the podcast series from CapeNature.